Hey guys, so now we're going to get into something mysterious. We're starting with Parshat Bereishis, and we're talking about something hard to understand. The Torah is described as being written black fire on white fire. So let's first, if this was a two-way discussion, I would love to hear your comments on that. But since it's not, I'm going to throw out some ideas of what black fire and white fire could mean. And then we'll go into three mystical commentaries, starting in the 12th century, going right to the 19th century. So the first thing to think about is fire is that it's foreboding and distance, keeps you away. But on the other hand, fire is light, and light is wisdom and knowledge. And black on white, we tend to feel is clarity. On the other hand, black fire and white fire seems to be clashing of two things that are diametrically opposed. So let's work with these concepts and see how they all take shape in these three mystical commentaries, starting with Nachmanides in the 13th century. So the Ramban says that there are actually two Torahs, and that's what's the imagery of black fire and white fire is hinting to. One Torah is a Torah that we have, that we look in our Torah scroll, and that's what we have. But there's another Torah that we don't have, and that Torah consists of the same letters of our Torah, if you can imagine having them all run together and divided up differently. And that Torah is a Torah with a list of God's names. Now, what could the Ramban mean? Essentially, God's names, usually when you name something, it means you understand the essence of it. For example, Adam named all the animals because he understood the essence of each animal. And in the story of Shimshon, Shimshon's father asked the angel, "What's your name?" And the angel replied, "Why would you ask my name?" And he disappeared, meaning, I'm an angel, you can't know me. So you have no access to that. So the Ramban is explaining the black fire on white fire as two different kinds of Torah, one that we can access and that one that is beyond our ability to understand. Now I want to quote from the Maharal Miprag. He has a Sefer Tiferet Yisrael. He lived in the 16th century. He takes a very different approach and says that fire is something that has almost no physical form. It's a gas. You can't hold it. You can't pick it up. And the black fire on white fire represents two diametrically opposed aspects of the Torah. One is chesed, that the Torah is all about chesed, teaching the world chesed. As the Maharal says, Ki kol inyan haTorah hu lekayem hatov ha'eloki. The whole purpose of the Torah is for mankind to keep and perpetuate the goodness of God. On the other hand, there's another aspect of Torah which is emet, which is truth. As he says, Ki ha'emet chatimo shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Emet is the signature of God. The only problem with emet is it's hard to discern because we live in a world of sheker, a world of falsehood. So although the chesed part of the Torah is accessible and people can see that and appreciate it, the emet seems to be somewhat concealed because of the world of darkness and the world of falsehood that we live in. So there is how he navigates the black fire on white fire as two aspects, one accessible and one not. The implication, of course, is to find the truth in the Torah takes more effort. It's easier to find the chesed, but you have to work harder to find the emet. Lastly, I'd like to look at a Hasidic master, Rabbi Yaakov Lerner, the Ishbitzer, 19th century. So he says, yes, it's true that fire is light, but sometimes you need a limiting factor in order to see something. Sometimes, the light is too bright and it's overwhelming. He gives an example of the body, which is clothing for the soul. So we can't appreciate the soul on its own. It would be too overwhelming, but that's why it's hidden, concealed in the body. And he says the same thing is true with the Torah, that the black light on white light means that our only access to the Torah comes through the fact that there is something concealing it, that black light. Otherwise, we would not be able to appreciate it. We would not be able to process it. Lastly, he says something that's very creative. We think as fire as destructive, but he says fire is something that breaks down physicality and leaves you with spirituality. Another way of looking at the force of fire. So there you have three opinions commenting how the Torah has an aspect of incomprehensibility. At the same time, it's something designed to completely light up our way and know how to live an exalted life in this world. Both together, black fire on white fire. Have a great Shabbat.